A beat across the board, Jay. Anything in here not to like?
So far, so good, right? It's a good number. It's not a crazy big blowout, but it's good. On first blush, everything looks fine. Uh, I'm content so far. We'll see what they say on the call.
Looking at commentary here off of the press release, quote, we see the momentum continuing in the first quarter and expect AI semiconductor revenue to double year over year to $8.2 billion, driven by custom AI accelerators and Ethernet AI switches.
So the question, Jay, I was going to ask you before those numbers came out, and it's probably even a more pertinent question now, is the connection between Broadcom's earnings and what we see in terms of CapEx from companies like Oracle yesterday. Can you make the connection for us?
Yeah, so I think there's a big distinction here in that a lot of what is going on with NVIDIA is sales to neoclouds, sort of cloud service providers other than the big three.
Yeah, like you're talking about like CoreWeave, for example.
Like CoreWeave and Nebius, right? And to some degree OpenAI. And so there's a little bit of there's a growing amount of concern about the ability of those companies to finance their build out. By comparison, most of Broadcom's customers are very well capitalized. They're big companies who if you can afford to design your own chip, you can afford to pay the bill to actually see the project through to completion. The one big exception to all this, of course, is OpenAI, and like they have deals with NVIDIA and deals with Broadcom to do their own chip. So that's a little bit of a question, but certainly there's less of a financing concern tied to Broadcom's numbers than there is to some of the things that are going on with NVIDIA.
Hey, that number that they expect AI semiconductor revenue to double year over year to 8.2 billion, that's impressive.
It's a big number. They've talked about that before.
Okay.
So that's not a surprise, but it's, they're reiterating that guidance. And I'll tell you one thing that's been interesting this quarter in particular is press releases only tell part of the story. There's been a lot of sort of big after hours swings in some of my names this quarter based on commentary during the call. So I'm kind of curious. Hock Tan, the CEO of Broadcom, is known for having all kinds of interesting color and saying really interesting, colorful things. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he has a few more surprises on the call itself.
Like, what do you mean?
When he's bullish, he can be very bullish.
Okay.
Right. We saw that last quarter with them and the quarter before. Back a year ago, nobody thought Broadcom had an AI story. And he started talking about it on the call, and suddenly people realized that not only do they have an AI story, but it's a massive story. And the stock was up 20% that day. And so they're continuing to build on that. And he can, he's very talkative. He might say something interesting.
I mean, what's remarkable about that is if we look at the 1 year chart, I mentioned, up 75% so far this year. Carol, it's up 127% from a year ago.
Yeah, that's why, it's unbelievable. Let's just, in case you're just joining us, shares of Broadcom are up about 2.7% here in the aftermarket off their highs because they've been a little bit higher coming off of earnings. The big reason that investors are excited here in the aftermarket has to do with the outlook for top line growth. We're talking about Broadcom saying it sees first quarter revenue about $19.1 billion versus an estimate on the street of $18.48 billion. They also expect AI semiconductor revenue to double year over year to $8.2 billion. We've been talking with Jay Goldberg over at Seaport Research, who said that number has been out there before, but they're reiterating them, so doubling down, if you will. And the fourth quarter, looking backwards, net revenue, that was a beat. Fourth quarter adjusted EPS, that was a beat. The company also saying it sees momentum continuing in the first quarter, and then it raised its dividend by about 10% from the prior quarter to 65 cents a share. Top of mind then, Jay, what's your top question here? Or do you just want to let Hock Tan go and see where he goes?
Yeah, one-on-one, I would just let him go and see where he takes us. I think the main things I'm looking out for are what's he going to say about other customers beyond the ones that they've announced? What's the timing of some of these ramps for these new products, and what he sees in the future if they're going to gain some more customers. I think that's all sort of. He said they have a certain number of customers lined up for this, but there's also been a lot of chatter this quarter that they may have won somebody else, like a Microsoft, and so I want to see if he takes the bait and talks about that topic.
I'm looking at Hock Tan and he's in his mid 70s right now, early 70s.
Yeah.
Do we have questions about succession?
So last quarter, he actually said the board had extended his contract through 2030, and he'd accepted.
Okay.
Um, he has been instrumental in making this company what it is. He's taken it from almost nothing to what it is, massive company today. And so there was a little bit of an overhang. Like, I think people thought he was going to retire next year, but he's clearly. I don't think he's doing it for the money. I think he's just having too much fun, and he's gonna stay with it until 2030.
Hey, Jay, Ardina Bass out with a short write-through off of Broadcom and their results. And, she notes that much of the recent buzz around Broadcom stemmed from its ties to some of the biggest AI model providers. And we've been talking about this with you. ChatGPT maker OpenAI signed a pact with Broadcom for its own AI chip designs, while Anthropic agreed to use tens of billions of dollars worth of computing services based on Alphabet's Google Cloud TPUs. The latter components also rely on Broadcom designs, helping fuel investor enthusiasm about the chipmaker's AI prospects. We've been talking all about this. Do you want to see Broadcom broaden out, or, man, they're playing with, the bells of the ball, if you will, and so they're in a good position?
I think there's a little bit more broadening they can do. There's a few more customers they can pick up, but the Broadcom model for his entire tenure has been focus on the sort of the biggest customers and just service them extensively, right? When they're a big player in wireless chips, and so their main customer is Apple, and they've been there for Apple for the entire run of the iPhone. And Apple's like, if you're not Apple, it's hard to get much attention from Broadcom. I think they're going to replicate that model here, and it's worked so far. And I think again, add a Microsoft maybe add an Apple if they ever get into this. But they don't have to add 100 more customers. They don't have to add 10. 2 or 3 already is driving the numbers pretty significantly.